Hi, this is Dr. Trammell. Let's talk about the Men in Black. The Men in Black are more than just some guys in dark suits in the movies that Will Smith kind of made famous. Actually, the Men in Black are a motif that the folklorist Peter Rokowitz devotes this entire paper to. And his thesis in this paper is that the Men in Black connect up to ancient lore about the devil and also the phenomenon of UFOs in the 1950s and 60s, and monsters in general. At the conclusion of this, he repeats this saying, I'm arguing for the relatedness of UFOs, the Men in Black, and the ancient figure of the devil. So that's his thesis. Now, obviously, that's a pretty big uh, thesis to try to prove in a relatively short paper. But before we talk about his thesis, let's specifically talk about the Men in Black. So Rokowitz uses phenomenology, which is a form of qualitative research that involves learning about people's lived experiences instead of emphasizing the pursuit of pure scientific facts. So, if we want to talk about something a little bit out there like alien abductions, the scientist would be able to prove or disprove pretty quickly whether such an experience actually happened to a person or not. But the phenomenologist is not interested in whether it actually happened or not. They are equally or more so interested in the experience, the story, how the person describes it. So this list you see here are characteristics that Rokowitz says show up a lot of the time, but not always. So you'll find these in combination, but these are also pretty major themes. Usually the Men in Black come in pairs or threes, just like you see in the previous photograph from the movie. Often they have knowledge or foreknowledge of things you don't know about or that they shouldn't be able to know about. Sometimes they act a little off. Maybe they stare silently. They don't have much affect or display much emotion or just stare at you. Usually, people in the 50s and 60s and 70s assumed that Men in Black worked for the military or for intelligence agencies in the government, and that they were there to protect secrets or to keep people from knowing about UFOs. But there's also a theory and a theme that many people subscribe to that the Men in Black are actually aliens of some type, just inhabiting a human form to get some kind of knowledge or experience or to impart something to us. Often they have a strange walking motion, which is interesting because that's compared to the devil later, who is sometimes depicted as being disabled and walking with a limp. Usually they speak very distinctly and crisply and articulate very well, but again, often without emotion. And sometimes they share arcane knowledge of things that are beyond our science and understanding, and people then try later to share that and have trouble recollecting exactly or coming up with the details. And often these encounters leave people confused, frightened, or in a funk, or all three. Markowitz wrote this in 1987, so that's 36 years old now, and that's even before the fall of the Berlin Wall. But I still think that's okay. But I want to point out that his thesis that something happened after World War II, and that would be related to this UFO craze is actually very consistent with my theory about neo-modernism, which I have as a reaction to the Holocaust, World War II, the atomic bomb, and the Cold War, etc. And so for me, in the same way that postmodernists reacted in art to modernity, UFO accounts seem to be a kind of homegrown, grass level reaction to being spied on, to not knowing who you can trust and who you couldn't back during McCarthyism. And so I think it's no mistake that we have this outbreak of UFO accounts in the 1950s and 60s. Therefore, for the Men in Black sightings and experiences to be tied primarily to that time shouldn't surprise us either. In fact, I'll even quote directly from him. This is on page 149, where he says that the Cold War years after World War II saw a rise of interest not only in flying saucers and their occupants, but also in monsters and the fantastic in general. And so this connects up to some of the larger themes we've talked about in class. Why monsters? Why these things that somehow express fear? Really interesting stuff that Rokowitz is doing here. Um, he even brings in Bigfoot and the abominable snowman and ghosts and poltergeists and all kinds of things, which, in a monsters class is sort of fun. But an important point he makes about phenomenology is that what the scholar knows and pursues is reality. This is on page 157. But what informants know is folklore. And so I think that this Men in Black phenomenon may be a product of the Cold War and the military industrial complex and the postmodern reaction to the Holocaust and the atom bomb. But I think Rokowitz makes the connection, and I think he makes it well enough to be a little bit convincing, that Men in Black are representative, and UFOs as well, of something much more monstrous and consistent in our long human past. So I hope this is helpful, and we're going to watch a Men in Black X-Files episode, which will maybe show you some of the power of that motif when it's put to work by somebody like director Chris Carter.